Attention, please. The show starts in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, Birdland? Stephen Heckman here for the Baltimore Battery, coming to you with the Final Strike program, brought to you today after the Baltimore Orioles unfortunately dropped the third and final game of the series against the Philadelphia Phillies with an 8-0 drubbing that was canceled by weather. Unfortunately, the rain just kept coming and would not stop. The Baltimore Orioles unfortunately fall to 54-58 and now head into the final day of the trade deadline, which is tomorrow, Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. They will unfortunately end up 2.5 games back at the time, and they end up scoring no runs in the final 2 games of the series, being outscored 13-0 across the final 15 innings of the game. It's really a shame is that Shane Baz, Shane the Wizard of Boz, did pitch a phenomenal game yesterday. He was on hook for the loss, regardless, but he did pitch a really good game yesterday, allowing only 1 run, just got no offense of support, which is the bad part. And in the process, the Philadelphia Phillies exploded for a 4-run 8th inning. Shane Baz unfortunately falls to 4-10 on the season, but he has an ERA of 3.86. So he's not been helped much offensively. He has had some struggles, but when your team only puts out 3 hits, strikes out 14 times, and can't do anything with the bases loaded, so 2 separate occasions and 5 walks, you know you've got some trouble. Fortunately, Kyle Bradish came out today, and he took the loss after giving up 3 runs in 3 short innings of work. Of course, his ERA will balloon a little bit, and his ERA now sits at 3.79. So once again, another sub-4 ERA. Good news, though, is Bassett strikes out 4 in his second rehab start at AAA, so he'll return nearly for the Baltimore Orioles, especially comes in handy after we traded Dean Kramer to the Minnesota Twins, as we welcome the Los Angeles Angels into town. Starting Tuesday. So we're off tomorrow, which means that there'll be plenty of time for us to be staring at headlines, wanting to see what the Baltimore Orioles are going to do. They're going to buy, they're going to sell, they're going to stand pat. Obviously, the rumors right now are all around Taylor Ward and Adley Rutschman. Rumors out of Baltimore are that the Baltimore Orioles and Adley Rutschman's representatives cannot meet on a financial future, and that they are far apart on terms of what they are searching for a long-term contract. Now, you've got to look at things in a few different ways here. The Baltimore Orioles have groomed and grown Adley Rutschman, a perennial 3-time All-Star. He has been on the injured list 5 times in the past 2 years, but he was looking more like the Adley of old this year. Granted, this is his 3rd stint, but normally wrist inflammation, you can, 3 days off, some ice and treatment, you'll be back in the lineup good as new. I think part of this was because of the trade deadline. They weren't sure if they were going to be trading him or not. Just keep him out of the lineup, make sure he doesn't get injured in case you do trade him. Problem I look at, though, is Samuel Basello. He's had this lingering shoulder injury for a few weeks. I remember when Jared and me were at the game against Toronto, and he actually got beamed and pulled out of the game, and that shoulder was bothering him then. And we're actually shocked to see him come back as soon as he did. And then here we are a few weeks down the road, and in an at-bat swinging, he injures that shoulder again. Now, do you want to sit there and go with an inexperienced catcher or a catcher with no offensive platitude to help serve you down the line while you're fighting for a postseason berth? And yes, only 2.5 games out with 50 games to play, you are still fighting for a wild card berth. Or do you want to bring in a catcher who's good defensively, who's been pretty good offensively for us, and who has been a leader of the team for the past few years? My mind says you can't trade Adley Rutschman, and it's serviceable, and we've seen this many times in the past between Rutschman and Adley or James McCann. Having 2 good catchers is highly valuable to your team and important to your team. Excuse me. So you have to look at the long-term situation as well as the short-term situation. Is there a door opening where you think you might be able to get Adley Rutschman long term? I think there is. He's not a Scott Boras agent, so I can foresee us getting around that being a problem. Unlike the Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg and Jackson Holiday issue. Um, I just think we've got to find a meet in between. Are we offering a 3-year contract with, back-to-back year options? What's the guaranteed money? How's the contract structured? You know, what's the deal? Also we've got to consider the ramifications of if there's a 2027 lockout. Well, are we only going to sign him for or keep him around next year and possibly trade him, or are we going to sign him for more than 3 years? 5 years? What's the gimme? You got Basello locked up for 8 years. You've got Boz locked up for 5 years. You've got Bradish locked up for 5 years, and you just gave Cano a 2-year extension. So it's not like the Orioles aren't worried about handing out contract extensions. It's a matter of how much, how long, and what they're offering. And that's the thing Rushman's got to look into. Rushman wants to be a catcher who probably wants to play 100 to 120 games as a catcher. Realistically, if you have two very good catchers who can slot in at catcher and DH, keeping them fresh, if you can get them to play 82 games apiece, you're probably going to do better for them long-term career and health-wise. Not to mention Basello also being able to play first base some will also give the ability to give Pete Alonso and Basello and Rutschman some rotation and at DH. Get Basello and Alonso in at first base, and then you have Basello and Rutschman in at catcher. So you have a 3-headed monster that you can keep on the field most of the time. And those 3 players on the field together, 2 of them being one being right-handed, one being left-handed, and the other one being a switch hitter. I mean, you're just asking for a 3-4-5 lineup right there that's just massive. They all can hit for power, they all can hit for average, and they all can get on base pretty well, and they all play pretty well defensively. So, giving them the ability to take a break in the field here or there. Excuse me again. I think you're doing nothing but benefiting your team. Now, we do have some players down in the minor leagues that you might want to consider as well. You have Creed Willems, but I don't know if I foresee him being a, everyday catcher or a once every 3 or 4 day catcher. I don't know if I foresee that in the cards. I know some people might scream at me for that. He's having a pretty decent season. Um, he's having a pretty decent season offensively down in the minor leagues, just like he's having a pretty decent season as a catcher. But the other thing you have to look at is he's also playing half his time at first base as well as half his time at catcher. So he's not actually playing every day at one position. He's playing he's playing another position as well. So you do have the ability to have another catcher who can play first base as well as catch, and you can go from there. So what your plan going forward is going to be, I don't know, it rests on what your ability, to figure out what you're going to do with Adley Rutschman going forward and what your plans with him going forward are going to be. Do you want to keep him around for another year, maybe 2? Or is this something you can see keeping him around for 3, maybe 4 years with an option year? These are questions that need to be answered. He's 28 years old. You talk about him playing until he's 30, 31, 32 years old. And there's a realistic possibility that you are not going to have baseball for part of, if not all of 2027, especially after you see the Tarek Skubal trade that just happened with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The rich keep getting richer while the poor keep getting poorer. So what do you do from that perspective? I don't know. How do you handle it? The other thing is you have Taylor Ward, who's on an expiring contract, and there are several teams who are in search of outfield help. Now, the Baltimore Orioles have said they're not opposed to dealing with it inside the division, but I would be hard-pressed to foresee them dealing Adley Rutschman to the New York Yankees. Taylor Ward, on the other hand, not so much of a hard loss, especially since it's less likely that the Yankees would offer him the long-term contract versus what they would offer Adley Rutschman. So I'm looking at what I would rather offer Adley Rutschman versus what I would rather offer Taylor Ward. And especially since you're not going to be able to move Tyler O'Neill's contract, the everyday starting outfield of Kowser, Beavers, and O'Neill with Leody Taveras, alternating in as your fourth outfielder. Plus, you have Heston Kjerstad, who's been starting to heat up down in the minor leagues. These are things you have to look at, and these are things you have to consider. There are many options on the table and on the floor on where you have to go and where you need to go and what you might want to do. Now, I also saw something that apparently the Baltimore Orioles have been listening to offers for Colton Cowser, Jackson Holliday, Trevor Rogers, and one other player I can't think of off the top of my head right now. And it's like, what are we doing? Where are we going? What is the concept here? Because for buyers, why would we be listening to offers for these players? And for sellers, once again, I still don't understand why we'd be listening to sellers for these players. Offers for these players. I mean, you have Jackson Holliday under team control for another 4 years. You have Colton Cowser under team control for another 3 years. I mean, I don't understand the thought processes that's going on here. And of course, this could all just be speculative rumors that people might be calling in on them just to see what's going on. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're actually listening. But the fact that the calls have been made and it's actually been leaked out that we have been listening to offers makes me wonder, what is the deal that's going on here? And the biggest question everybody keeps asking Mike Elias is about Adley Rutschman. And his response is, we've got to face reality, but what is the reality? If you like the guy and you want him in your organization, you keep him in your organization. That's the reality of it. If you don't like the guy and you don't want him there, then say that and trade the guy. You don't want to sit there and keep beating around the bush. Give us a straight answer. You're either going to be active in the trade deadline by selling or you're going to be active in the trade deadline by buying. We're Baltimore Orioles fans. We've been down this road many times before, and we've been promised something that we've yet to see happen since 2024, and that's be competitive in the postseason. As is, if we do make it into the postseason, and that's a big if, baseball gods, if you're listening, please allow us to. We've lost 10 straight in the postseason. So the first thing we get into postseason, we'd like to win a game first. After we win the game, let's win a series. Then let's get to the next series before we start talking about anything else. First, we got to get to the postseason. And an article I wrote today has actually come out and been published. It's the three things that Baltimore needs to overcome in order to make playoffs. Two of those things can be rectified through the trade deadline or through signing players who are cut just as simply as well. So, and that you got to figure out which direction to go. Bullpen and defense has been our biggest hiccup. Bullpen has blown 16 saves this year. Those 16 saves, whether they've turned into wins eventually or not, those 16 saves are the difference between where we are now and where we could be. Even if you convert half of those blown saves, you're talking about 8 games better than we are right now. 8 games. So instead of 54 and 56, you're talking about 62 and 48. I mean, that's a big difference. It's a big difference about where you'd be in the standings, where you would be in the wild card race. I apologize. Where you go from here is the problem. What you do from here is the problem. And there's been no inkling on what the Baltimore Orioles are going to do. I mean, there really has been no inkling on what the Baltimore Orioles are going to do. We pick up a catcher, And then we trade for a catcher from Detroit. And then we trade Dean Kramer for an 18-year-old prospect who, when you look at his makeup and what his potential is, it looks like the next Raul Mondesi, which, if that's the case, I'll take that. Raul Mondesi had a nice career, had a hell of a arm, and, you know, pretty good long career as a baseball player. Hit you about 20 home runs, 15, 20 home runs, knock you in 80, 90 runs, and he was quiet about his job. He went about did his business and was quiet about it. But, you know, the kid's 18 out of the Dominican Republic, and yes, the Dominican Republic has produced quite a lot of good players, but it's also produced some bad players. And when you get a kid who's 18, it's still determined on what exactly they're going to do at their age going forward. Now, according to the trade calculator, it says that the Twins grossly overpaid for Dean Kramer. But Dean Kramer's pitched 707 innings since 2020. He's reliable and consistent. Usually, up until this year, had not missed much time due to injury. He actually pitched the postseason winner and the division clincher for us in 2023. So he's done a lot for us over the years. Yes, he did not falter well into the playoffs that year, but nor did any of our pitchers. So you can't just blame him for that. But I mean, the guy had a respectable 3.74 ERA after the month of May in his career. He was god awful near 6 and above in April and May. 42-44 record. You know, his career 4.74 ERA, which I'm sorry for a back end rotation guy to give you 707 innings in the past 5 seasons, 5.5 seasons. Go 42 and 44. He did all we asked. And I know a lot of people aren't fans of his, and a lot of people are glad he left Baltimore. But in reality, what he did for Baltimore during the time he was here, he was the last piece of the Manny Machado trade to stick around. But what he did for Baltimore while he was here was he showed up and did his job. And yeah, he had a couple of strange interactions this year with Pete Alonso and Samuel Basello. The I don't know what that was about. Yeah, I guarantee you Pete Alonso pays more attention to things than you think, Dean. But, it's sad that's one of the last things that Birdland's gonna see from you in an Orioles uniform is you calling out Pete Alonso about, "Are you watching?" So, but in return, we also picked up a catcher from the Detroit Tigers, for a prospect, and this guy was out there last night. He's not much of a hitter. Defensively, it is what it is. I haven't seen anything impressive about him, but I haven't seen anything horrible about him. So we'll have to wait and see going forward. But that also depends on what they do with Rutschman and Basello. Is Basello's injury a cause of concern? Is Rutschman's injury a cause for concern, or is it, just a safe burner on whether they decide if they're going to trade him or not? We don't know. And it's funny, every year around the trade deadline, you see moves like this where players are actually put on the IL just to prevent them from getting injured, prevent them from doing something that would cause them a problem, something to that effect. So, I don't know, Birdland. All I know is there's 50 games left in the season. There's a lot of baseball left. Surprisingly, 50 games doesn't seem like a lot, but in the baseball world of things, it is a lot. I've seen teams with 7.5 game leads blow it in 10 days of the season left. Red Sox and Atlanta Braves both did it in the same season. So, crazier things have happened, and we'll look to see what happens going forward. But let me know what you think. Do you think the Orioles did the best thing by trading Kramer? Do you think there's more moves on the horizon? What do you think is going to happen by 6 p.m. tomorrow? Are the Baltimore Orioles going to be selling? Are they going to be buying? Are they going to stand pat and do nothing? Let's hear your thoughts on this, and let's know what you think going forward, because I can honestly tell you that we have no clue what guidance Mike Elias is going with right now. If Mike Elias is even the GM. Once again, I'm still speculative about if he's actually running things right now or somebody else is running him and he's just, the front man for everything. But let me know what you think. Please let me know in the comments below. Let me know in the comments. You can shoot me an email, srheckman@gmail.com. You can follow me on YouTube. Um, Same thing, SRJ Heckman. Message there, post a comment. You can also find us where all podcasts are played, and you can find me on X and TikTok at SRJ Heckman as well. You can also find the Final Strike on X, formerly Twitter, at the Final Strike _. So give me your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let's see what you're thinking out there about this upcoming trade deadline. Let me know what you think about the Orioles needs to fix it. Is it as simple as, adjusting the defense to play better? Is it as simple as getting the bullpen a couple arms to maybe improve that and give a break to some of the other guys? Is there other trades you'd like to see happen? Is there something that you'd like to see happen that we haven't discussed? Let me know. Obviously, I can't do this without you all, so I want to give you a big shout out and thank you for that. Also want to give a big shout out to the Baltimore Battery, because without the Baltimore Battery, I wouldn't be here. I want to check the BaltimoreBattery.com, because in the last few days, we've had quite a bit come out. The Great, the Good, and the Ugly came out. We've had 2 separate articles, one from me, one from RJ Alberto, talking about mine is about the possible arms the Orioles could land through the trade deadline. RJ Alberto's is about possible players we could look to purchase during the trade deadline. Zachary has the prospects of the month coming out. Jared wrote an article about the state of the Orioles, since the Dean Kramer trade. And then I most recently wrote an article talking about what 3 things the Orioles must overcome in order to make the postseason this year. So don't forget to give the Baltimore Battery a look at. You can follow them at the BaltimoreBattery.com. You can also locate them on X, formerly of Twitter, at the Be More Battery, or you can find them on TikTok at the Be More Battery. So give us your thoughts. Let us know what you think. Let me know what you think. And are you interested in possibly having me do a show like this while live recording on TikTok? Give me your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. Till next time, Birdland. Remember, keep that beer cold. Keep cheering the Baltimore Orioles, because we do need it. And peace out. Till next time, everybody, be safe and have a wonderful weekend.